What is going on, everybody? The season is done. Congratulations to the New England Patriots on another championship, but that means it is time to really get into NFL draft season. And in honor of that, we have my second mock draft of the season. Now, about 3 weeks ago, we did one of these. It went really well. Really had fun interacting with you guys on that, but it is a little outdated because we had players that still had yet to declare. So there's players in that are not actually in this class. But more importantly, I have now had 3+ weeks to really dive into college film and put together much stronger opinions of these guys and have a better grasp on where I would take these players. So excited for that. A quick reminder that if you want to subscribe to all of my draft content, yes, there will be plenty here on YouTube, but you can get even more on my Patreon, where for the first time we are doing film breakdowns of individual players. We just finished Kyler Murray up there on Patreon, and then you can also get my draft board and stay up to date on all of my evaluations throughout the process. So head over to patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy to subscribe to all of that. And then a quick reminder, this is a what I would do mock draft. I'm not necessarily trying to predict what will happen. I'm telling you what I would do if I was in the GM chair of all 32 teams. Now, some of this might line up with how these GMs evaluate these players in real life, but in my opinion, it's kind of pointless to predict what will happen. Even the Mel Kipers of the world only get like 4 or 5 picks, maybe right a year. So this is just what I think of these players, what I think these teams need, and who I would take. And yes, there will be trades. So let's get into it here, starting at number 1 with the Arizona Cardinals. In the first mock, we had a controversial pick here, taking Kyler Murray first overall, despite them taking Josh Rosen in the first round last year. And I actually lost a lot of people on that, as it is a bit of a hot take, if you will. But look, guys, Kyler Murray is going to be a first-round pick in this class. He's going to be a top 10 pick, as I talked about in my film breakdown of him, for those that saw that. He is, in my opinion, much more Russell Wilson than he isn't at 5'9", I would say. He is an instant spark plug for an offense that doesn't have weapons like Arizona. So that is why I like the fit here in Arizona, and I am going to stick to my guns. I don't care if it doesn't make a lot of people happy. Some people really like this pick as well, but this is honestly what I would do if I was Steve Keim and the Arizona Cardinals. And it's not that I don't like Josh Rosen. You guys can go back. I liked Josh Rosen. I still do. But with these quarterbacks, that second year is so important. And as we've seen with players time and time again, you can actually spoil a player if you don't put a good surrounding core around him. And I am very confident that that is the direction Arizona is headed. Unless they draft incredibly well, this is not going to be a good supporting cast for Josh Rosen in year 2. And even if you do, I still think he belongs in that system quarterback category with guys like Jared Goff. So even if you could get him to that Jared Goff level, we just saw what that sort of player, Matt Ryan being another comparison, kind of has limitations when you face good defenses in the playoffs. They scored 3 points in the Super Bowl with Jared Goff. So I am going to take Kyler Murray for the Arizona Cardinals. He is a quarterback that can create offense. He can scramble for first downs. He can throw receivers open. He can elude pressure behind that terrible offensive line. And you are able to still get great value for Josh Rosen. We will talk about where he is headed in a trade during this draft. Another point here being the creativity that Cliff Kingsbury, coming from the Big 12 where Kyler Murray played, Kingsbury will simply just have way more options that he can do with this offense with Kyler Murray at quarterback, as opposed to more of a system guy in Josh Rosen. My last point is, you ask the Seattle Seahawks, the 49ers, the Rams, who do you want the Cardinals to pick? Nick Bosa or Kyler Murray? I think they would all say Nick Bosa. We'd rather play Josh Rosen. So maybe I convinced you guys otherwise, maybe not. I don't care. That's my pick. Moving on here to the San Francisco 49ers. Slam dunk pick here, Nick Bosa. This isn't changing. Currently at 50-1 to win the Super Bowl. I can't get my bets in fast enough with Jimmy Garoppolo coming back healthy. Plenty of time to heal that ACL. And Kyle Shanahan, I think the 49ers are poised for an absolute rebound next year to be one of the best teams in the NFL. Then number 3, the New York Jets. Now, their biggest need is offensive artillery. Problem is, here at the top of the draft, you're not really taking elite offensive talent. The top talent in this draft is on the defense. So you definitely think about a trade down here, but there is still one player on the board right now who, in my opinion, is one of 2 blue chip prospects, potential to be an elite game-wrecking type of player, and it's Ed Oliver. Now, I cannot believe that in 2019, after we saw Aaron Donald fall into the teens after we've seen Geno Atkins, Mike Daniels, Grady Jarrett be some of the most impactful defensive players in the league, all quote-unquote undersized for defensive linemen. For us to still sit here and say that Ed Oliver can't be a great defensive tackle because he's undersized blows my freaking mind, man. I can't remember hype being higher on a defensive player before a college season than Ed Oliver. And no, he didn't have a Heisman season like Ndamukong Suh at defensive line. He did get benched in a game for some weird off-the-field thing. I don't care. To me, I think he is a game-wrecking player. If I am the Jets, I'm capitalizing on the opportunity to get Ed Oliver here. You pair him with Leonard Williams, and you have an identity up front. And yeah, you need edge rush, but like the Rams that we've seen, you can at least start on that interior and maybe build around the edge as you continue to grow here for the Jets. But I think you got to just take the elite talent here with Ed Oliver, and you can add artillery on the offense later in the draft. So then number 4, the Oakland Raiders. I think you definitely want to get an elite defensive player here. If you're Oakland, you traded away Khalil Mack. The reason you're here is because you did that. You need to find that replacement for him in this draft. Not saying you're going to get Khalil Mack, but you got to find an impact defensive player. The thing is, according to my board, there's not much of a difference here between 4 and 9. And we know Oakland has a ton of holes, so they are a trade down candidate for me. And then you have a trade up candidate in Jacksonville a few spots later. So I am going to trade up from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, they could technically still get Dwayne Haskins here, my pick, at 7, but you've got teams there at 10, at 11, at 13, 15, eyeing this pick. The further this drops, the further Dwayne Haskins drops, the more teams are going to be willing to move up. So Jacksonville, almost like the Bears did a couple years ago to go get Trubisky, are going to go up and get their quarterback here, Dwayne Haskins, at 4. Oakland's going to move down to 7, where according to my board, you're going to be able to get pretty much the same defensive talent one way or another, and you pick up some future picks, maybe a second in this, probably not a future first, but probably a collection of second and third round picks that are going to bring starters into this roster that is just a freaking mess. And then for Jacksonville, Haskins is going to solidify that quarterback position. He is the anti-Blake Bortles, extremely efficient as a passer. I don't know if he's ever going to be an elite guy. He has the upside, but as a pocket passer, he is poised and can really execute kind of a short West Coast passing game that I think can make this offense serviceable for a team that we know has a good defense still. So moving on, Tampa Bay, gonna stay on this hill here. Byron Murphy, the corner out of Washington, seems like a reach still right now, but as this draft process continues, I do think Murphy's going to continue to climb. Reminds me a lot of Denzel Ward and Jair Alexander last year. 5'11", super quick, fast corner, great cover skills. I think teams are going to desire his skill set more than Greedy Williams, and I do think Byron Murphy is going to end up being the number 1 corner in this class when all is said and done, after a bit of a surprise declaration from him coming out early. Number 6. The New York Giants, and this is going to be the same take here. The Giants trade the 6th overall pick to Josh Rosen. What? Oh my God, you can't do that. Josh Rosen was the 10th pick last year. Now you're going to take him at 6? Look, Josh Rosen, if he were in this class, outside of what you think of Kyler Murray, is the number 1 quarterback in this class. And even if Dwayne Haskins were here at 6, which he's not, I do think Josh Rosen would be better for the Giants than Dwayne Haskins. I think he's a more accurate thrower downfield, and he's a little more mobile. And he already has a year of experience in the NFL. I do think people love the mystery of a rookie in Dwayne Haskins. It's almost like when you do a fantasy football draft and you see those rookie receivers fly off the board in like the 7th, 8th round because they want that mystery. I think there is that with Dwayne Haskins, but you just evaluate the player. Josh Rosen had no chance last year. If he were just coming out this year, he'd probably be the number 1 pick, and he still has 4 years of cheap control. He doesn't even necessarily have to start here, but you can push Eli Manning kind of in the same way Lamar pushed Joe Flacco. If you remember, Flacco was actually playing pretty well before he got hurt mid-season. New York needs to figure out this quarterback situation. If they take a lineman here, they're just going to win 6 or 7 games again and end up picking in this same range of 7 to 12. They have got to get a young franchise quarterback as soon as they get an opportunity. They already passed on that chance when they took Saquon Barkley. So now you bring in Josh Rosen. He can throw to Odell. He can throw to Saquon. And maybe he can have success here in New York with a better surrounding situation than he had in Arizona. So then for Arizona, we're going to take Jonah Williams, the best lineman in this class, in my opinion. He can play tackle or guard, it doesn't matter. Arizona just desperately needs somebody to just stabilize something on that offensive line because it is just a mess, and hopefully help get that run game going a little bit too with David Johnson, who's still their best player, at least on offense. Okay, so number 7, where Oakland traded down, we are going to actually have a bit of a surprise pick. We did a player profile on this player, but Zach Allen. Right now, the number 4 overall player on my board. Now, Quinnen Williams was another player I thought about here, but Oakland actually spent some draft capital on interior line last year. Zach Allen can actually play on the inside a little bit as well, but Allen off the edge, I think, is the best option to come in and be a spark plug for this pass rush. He is going to provide a physical element up front that they need as well. Definitely a John Gruden type of player. I think he has the ceiling of like what we have in J.J. Watt, at least this end of career J.J. Watt, who's not necessarily quite as big of a freak athlete, but with his work ethic and his size and his skill set, I do think Zach Allen can be a blue chip defensive player in this league, a versatile piece for Oakland to build around here as they continue this rebuild. So it's going to seem a little wild, but we've seen reaches before, and I really am high on Zach Allen. Number 8, Detroit. Going to get Rashawn Gary here at number 8. We did this in the first draft. We actually traded up for him. I think that was kind of dumb on me. I think they don't need to trade up for Rashawn Gary, and even if he goes, you can get a Zach Allen or Quinnen Williams, even though they have pretty good interior guys. So Rashawn Gary is going to stay in Michigan here. He is a perfect, and I cannot stress that enough, perfect fit for this scheme here, the Bill Belichick, Matt Patricia scheme, that gap control defensive end that's a little bigger, better in run defense, but maybe doesn't offer quite as much as a pass rusher. But Gary is a total freak. His lack of production his junior year doesn't scare me. It was an injury-ridden season, but this guy is a top 3 potential talent that you're getting here at number 8 that you can definitely build around this defense. And then number 9, the Buffalo Bills. They are going to land Quinnen Williams here. They definitely need help on the offensive line. But with Kyle Williams retiring here, you replace him with another Williams up front. Potential blue chip player there on the interior. Probably just a slam dunk pick there for Buffalo. I think they'd be popping champagne if they landed Quinnen Williams at 9, who I do actually think has a chance to fall just because the demand for interior guys who aren't like elite pass rushers. I don't know if Quinnen Williams is going to be an elite pass rusher on the interior. I think he's probably closer to like Jonathan Allen, maybe a little more athletic, but a pretty safe pick and a really solid one there for Buffalo. And then number 10, seeing a lot of Drew Lock here to Denver. Again, this is a what I would do mock. Outside of Murray and Haskins, I don't see a first-round quarterback left in this class. I think it'd be really dumb to reach for Drew Lock here. I think you could probably actually trade up for him later if need be. Denver has a huge need at corner. They have Chris Harris, but he's getting older. They have Bradley Roby, but he was a pretty extreme disappointment, and he might even be a free agent this year. They are missing that Aqib Talib piece, that shutdown option on the outside. So give me Greedy Williams here, lengthy, athletic corner out of LSU, possibly the best corner in this class. Although I love Byron Murphy, I think those two are really good players. I think Greedy is a really good fit here in Denver and could be a piece that helps get this Denver defense back to that championship caliber defense, which is their best hope to be a playoff team next year. And then number 11, Cincinnati, Devin White. This is like the most common pick, I think, in mock drafts out there. It just makes a lot of sense. This is exactly where he should go as a prospect. And Cincinnati desperately needs linebackers. Even if Vontaze Burfict is in there, Burfict is not playing well. He just had like his 7th concussion. He has off the field issues. And then other than him, they really need to get faster in the second level of this defense. So you put in Devin White, and then really on all 3 levels of the defense, then you have really good players. And this defense, like I said on the podcast last week, I think Cincinnati actually could be a bounce back candidate next year. Then number 12, Green Bay. Kind of like Buffalo here, just popping champagne. Josh Allen falls here. Now, I am lower on Josh Allen. A lot of people have like Khalil Mack comparisons for him. I don't. I don't think he's going to be an elite pass rusher at the next level. He's very fast and has good bend, but I don't necessarily see the power. I don't see the skill set in terms of, setting up pass rush moves. He really got by off of his elite athleticism and had really high sack production. So I don't have him in that top 5 prospects in this class. I think if I'm a 4-3 team, I definitely like guys like Zach Allen and Rashawn Gary a lot better. So for me, I do have Josh Allen falling a little bit, and I wouldn't be terribly surprised if this did happen. The hype is a little off the rails right now for Josh Allen. But for Green Bay, who dropped their edge rushers into coverage more than any team in the NFL last year, I think Mike Pettin is going to be licking his chops to see Josh Allen, who is one of the best coverage edge rushers for whatever that means in a long, long time. Probably since Anthony Barr. And then number 13, the Miami Dolphins. Now, I mocked a quarterback here in the first one, and it's very clear now that Miami, I think, is going to just blow this thing up and try to kind of tank and get Jake Fromm or whoever ends up being their quarterback next year. They actually are the lowest in terms of Super Bowl odds right now. So you don't take a quarterback when you're entering that stage. I think picking here at 13, there's really not a piece here that's going to change that direction. I would move down, load up on picks, and almost in a way help yourself be worse next year by not taking this guy that I am going to take with Tennessee, trading up here, Ja'Kai Polite. Polite I actually have right now as the number 3 edge rusher in this class, actually ahead of Josh Allen, believe it or not. But I think that Green Bay is going to like the versatility and coverage of Josh Allen. But Polite is really growing on me. He is Melvin Ingram as a prospect, and I think there's a better chance than not that he turns in to Melvin Ingram. So Tennessee moves up, gets that complimentary piece. Polite's more than a compliment, but they get that piece opposite of Harold Landry and really have an identity with an elite 1-2 punch at pass rush there for Tennessee. And Miami's going to end up getting a pretty solid pick there, probably a second round pick this year or maybe a second round next year or something, but definitely a big pick for them in a rebuild. And then number 14, Atlanta. We're going to go with Jeffrey Simmons here out of Mississippi State. Player's really growing on me. The depth is actually kind of thinned out here at D-tackle with a couple big guys saying that they're going to return and enter next year's draft. So the demand here for a guy like Jeffrey Simmons, who is a do-it-all interior lineman, definitely rising. I think Atlanta needs this, even if they're able to retain Grady Jarrett, even though it looks like he might be hitting the market. They definitely need another piece on the inside of this D-line. They need to be more physical on defense, and Jeffrey Simmons is going to bring that to them. Then number 15, the Washington Redskins. Really tough position here. Really try to put myself in the GM seat here. You see a lot of Daniel Jones here at 15. I would not do that. I think you're wasting a pick if you're Washington. It looks like Alex Smith is not going to play next year. This is really a mess. When I looked at my board, though, there really wasn't a fit here for Washington. I think I just was like, just get me out of this. Let me move down. Give me another pick later, and I'll figure out who I want to take later because no one really stood out to me. So then I look at Minnesota here, a few picks back. They're going to move up and jump a couple teams that need some line help. With Jeffrey Simmons gone, I think Minnesota definitely wants to go offensive line here. So they're going to take Dalton Risner here. They really need guard play more than anything, but I do think tackle is going to be a problem for them moving forward as well, though they have a couple guys that can kind of play there right now. So Risner can come in, probably be your guard year one, and then he offers flexibility as Riley Reif gets older, as you find out if you have something at right tackle there, and the young kid, I can't think of his name right now, but the flexibility I think is an awesome. But the flexibility, I think, is something Minnesota's definitely going to desire here. And he's just a mean mugging motherfucker. So they're going to like him there in the first round. Number 16, Carolina. This one stood out to me. Clelin Ferrell, Julius Peppers retiring a couple days ago. Carolina really needs some help on the edge. Defense is going to be the identity of this team, but they can't have a great defense without a good pass rush. So they bring in Clelin Ferrell, who I am a little lower on. I don't think he's got like elite upside. I think he's going to be a plug and play high-end number 2 edge rusher right away, but I just don't necessarily see the explosion from the pass rushing perspective. He actually plays upright quite a bit and isn't as good in run defense as I thought he would be as I watched more of him. So I like Clelin Ferrell. I think this is a good pick for him at 16. But I will say I'm just a little lower on him than most. Then number 17, Cleveland, Rodney Kajust. Super athletic tackle, polished pass protector, biggest need for Cleveland here. Not going to get much argument here. I think this is going to be very common and is a pick that I think we actually could very realistically see in real life. Then number 18, Washington, who moved down here. Another player that I am higher on than most, Riley Ridley, a guy that I think is going to climb up boards here as we see him work out. His production was low at Georgia. He was splitting targets with a bunch of receivers. And Georgia's just a run-first team in general. But I really actually like Riley Ridley more than his brother Calvin Ridley. He's bigger, more physical at the point of attack, and I actually like him better after the catch in terms of his shiftiness. He reminds me a lot of like Devontae Adams, actually. So I think it's a need. I think it's probably the best available player at a need for Washington. So give me Riley Ridley. And then Miami here, who traded down at 19. Another interesting pick here. We're going to go with Draymond Jones out of Ohio State. Now hear me out. He's projected late first, early second, but he really pops off the film. And I'm probably going to do a prospect profile on him. He's a bit of a tweener right now. He's like 6'3", 286. But you know who he actually reminds me quite a bit of? Cameron Jordan. Extremely explosive. I think he could actually play on the edge in the NFL. But Miami needs another piece on the edge. We don't even know if Charles Harris is good, but Cameron Wake is gone. But they need interior help as well. So they get a versatile piece on this defensive line. But he also fits well because he might be a little more of a project. He might take a year or two to like figure out what weight he wants to play at, craft his game to what type of player he's going to be at the NFL level. But I think this actually be a really freaking good for Miami, whether he plays inside or outside. And then number 20, Pittsburgh, Julian Love. Now, a lot of people are mocking DeAndre Baker here. I think that'd be a great pick too. They're very similar players. I just kind of like the Notre Dame. Julian Love, a little more of a badass, I think. Pittsburgh might kind of like his approach a little more than DeAndre Baker. Used to playing outside in the cold. For two players that are really close, I think that might be a difference maker. Julian Love is a really freaking good corner. So then number 21, Seattle. Can go in a lot of directions here. I actually thought long and hard about Trey Lamar. KJ Wright is a free agent. They are going to need someone to come in and play linebacker if they don't retain KJ Wright. Trey Lamar actually could be a really good fit here, but I did push him into the second round. Spoiler alert. Stuck with the what I would do mock here, Andre Dillard, tackle out of Washington State. Really refined pass protector. 6'5", so he could actually play guard and then maybe move out to tackle when Dwayne Brown retires, if he doesn't already. But another versatile piece here for Seattle. Now, they have stayed away from investing in this line, so that's kind of why I thought about Trey Lamar. But I really do think they would benefit from protecting Russell Wilson a little more and investing in that offense. And the number 22, Baltimore. Thought pretty long and hard about this one, and then one player just caught my eye. Josh Jacobs, running back out of Alabama. Basically every running back in Baltimore here is a free agent. I don't see them paying any of these guys. But the big thing is, with Lamar Jackson now, they have a brand new identity. Their offensive approach is going to change this offseason to run the ball, play action, get our tight ends involved. You see receivers mocked here all the time to Baltimore. And this is one of my biggest takes. You can't take a receiver if you're Baltimore because Lamar Jackson doesn't use his receivers. You're going to waste that pick. But Josh Jacobs is going to be an absolute spark plug to that running game. Can also catch the ball out of the backfield extremely well. And he actually kind of reminds me a little bit of like Le'Veon Bell and Joe Mixon, who play in that same division. They're losing some players on defense that they're going to have to replace, but this one just really stood out to me. They also have a bias towards Alabama players, so give me Josh Jacobs to Baltimore. Number 23, the Houston Texans. I didn't love the value here. Still a team kind of that we're seeing has some holes after that big Deshaun Watson trade that they missed some picks. So we're going to move down with Houston later in this first round, and the Chargers are going to move up and grab Dexter Lawrence. So back-to-back picks here. I normally wouldn't go running back in the first round, but I think it's a huge need for Baltimore and would really spark that team. And then 23, I normally wouldn't take a nose tackle in the first round either, but we saw the Chargers get absolutely man-freaking handled by the Patriots in the playoffs. They need size up front. Big time. And Dexter Lawrence is a freak. Very similar to Vita Vea as a prospect, in my opinion. I think 23 is a much more reasonable spot to take this player, and a lot of defensive linemen have flown off the board. They could be getting scared that they won't be able to get this player at 28. And then number 24, the Oakland Raiders. Would really suck to be the player that gets picked here and just be known as the guy that the Raiders traded Khalil Mack for. And it's going to be Greg Little, who might be the biggest bust potential in this first round in this mock, but he has crazy high upside. There's a guy a lot of people thought was going to be a top 10 pick before the year started, and just kind of got passed up by a lot of actual good tackle depth in this class and just kind of an overall disappointing season. So Oakland needs tackle help. I actually mocked them, Jonah Williams, 4th overall in my first mock. So I do think you get a high upside prospect here. But even if Colton Miller turns things around and is good, you still need another tackle here. So you're going to land Greg Little. And then number 25, the Philadelphia Eagles. Ronald Darby going to be a free agent here. This team needs help in the secondary. We're going to take DeAndre Baker, actually kind of a similar prospect to Ronald Darby. So a good replacement there. Get a good cheap rookie deal of 5 years for a starting corner for a team that is definitely butting up against the cap these next couple of years. Then Indianapolis at 26. Going to stick with the same pick I had before, DK Metcalf. Now, he is like Greg Little in that he has high bust potential. He's got injury concerns and just, I have a personal bias against Ole Miss players, but I think there's something to it in terms of the work ethic of the players that come out of that program. I just don't necessarily have the best track record. But you put DK Metcalf, who has a Josh Gordon-like ceiling, just a massive human at wide receiver, and he's fast. You put that with Andrew Luck, a good complement to the smaller T.Y. Hilton. I think there's a chance you can kind of get the most out of DK Metcalf, assuming he can stay healthy. And I like the kind of swing for the fences pick here for Indianapolis because they just, sorry for the baseball references, hit their last draft out of the park. So they can afford to kind of miss if they do miss, but I like the upside of this pick in DK Metcalf. And then number 27, the Oakland Raiders. This is the Amari Cooper pick, and we're going to take Irv Smith, a versatile piece that John Gruden can scheme up. Super athletic tight end. Jared Cook is a free agent, but even if they bring him back, he's 31. You can play them both at the same time. Derek Carr does not like to hold on the ball very long, so Irv Smith is going to offer another short to intermediate threat. So you get a couple pieces here in the late first to hopefully make this a much better offense next season. And then number 28, where Houston traded down, we're just going to take Elgton Jenkins and figure it out later where he's going to play. You've got Nick Martin up front, you got Zach Fulton, and now you have Elgton Jenkins. So you got three guys that can play center or guard. They need a tackle as well, but I didn't love the value here. Elgton Jenkins is just a really solid player, and he's a safe pick for Houston, who just cannot afford to miss on an offensive lineman here in the first round. And then number 29, the Kansas City Chiefs. We're actually going to have an interdivision trade. I know that's rare. And this is probably the one pick in this that is kind of a predictive pick, not necessarily what I would do. But I wouldn't rule this out if I was Denver. So Denver's going to trade up for Drew Lock here. I think Kansas City's willing to do that because I doubt Kansas City's really terrified of Drew Lock becoming the quarterback of Denver for the next 3 years. I did not love the value for Kansas City. I think you can move down to that pick in the second round and still get a good defensive back that's going to have about the same grade as you'd be reaching for here. So Denver is going to have a little PTSD here, a little Tim Tebow, Paxton Lynch PTSD. I do think Drew Lock is a better prospect than those other two players. I do have a first-round grade on Drew Lock. I think he has a chance to be a starting caliber player, but I just don't necessarily see it. But maybe he can sit, and after a year of getting an elite defensive in place here and then maybe bringing in some better weapons for him and a better offensive line, he could have a chance. I would not start Drew Lock right away, though. I would continue to go with Case Keenum, or maybe they sign someone. But you definitely eventually need to improve that quarterback room, and this gives you a shot at that, especially if they are going to be more competitive next year after taking Greedy Williams at number 10. So then number 30, the Green Bay Packers with the Saints pick. I still think that Green Bay actually has huge needs on the offensive side of the ball, both at guard and at wide receiver. Outside of Devontae Adams, I don't see a single threat on this offense. Jimmy Graham was just a travesty last year. And then you've got some young playmakers that might develop, but you can't sit around and wait on those Equanimeous St. Brown and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. You've got to get a spark plug wide receiver here. Thought about Paris Campbell. We've seen all these NFC North teams kind of have that Big Ten bias, but I actually went with Marquise Brown. Absolute speedster out of Oklahoma. Kind of reminds me of Brandon Cooks a little bit. Has some drop issues, but I do think Matt LaFleur, who is worked with Brandon Cooks and kind of had that role set up in that offense, he is going to like the idea of just an absolute burner at wide receiver. So we're going to go Marquise Brown here to the Green Bay Packers. And then 31, the LA Rams could really use some help at linebacker. I kind of like Corey Littleton, but we're going to take Devin Bush here out of Michigan. Little undersized, but the Rams front office has proved time and time again that they are not afraid to be aggressive, take chances on undersized players, be a little creative defensively. Devin Bush can fly. He's a total playmaker at linebacker and a huge position of need for the Rams. And then number 32, the New England Patriots are going to take Noah Fant Even if Gronkowski returns next year, which I think he probably will, this Patriots offense is becoming more and more focused on that short to intermediate catch and run option passing game. Tom Brady's deep ball numbers have just kind of fallen off a cliff over the last couple seasons. So I think they're going to want to get back to kind of that 2 tight end action that they were doing back in the Hernandez-Gronkowski days. Noah Fant's a great fit here and a great polish here to the first round. So that's going to do it. Please hit that like button, guys. It's the easiest way to support the channel. Comment. I will try to answer as many questions and respond to as many comments as possible. Keep in mind what I said about subscribing to all of my draft content on Patreon. Excited to keep this thing rolling. So cheers as always, guys. Peace out. We'll see you next time.